NFL in Indianapolis, and it's the Chicago Bears who are in the middle of all of it. Ryan Poles, their general manager, has maybe unprecedented control over the draft. They've got the first pick. They've got the 9th pick. They have a 24-year-old ascending quarterback in Justin Fields that a lot of people like. Here was Poles yesterday talking about Fields' future.
I would love to know as soon as possible.
Right.
I mean, I would love to know, but I know that's not how the process works. Sure, before free agency would be good. I want to do right by Justin as well. No one wants to live in gray. I know that's uncomfortable. I wouldn't want to be in that situation either.
Okay, so I have been saying all weekend, for those of you just joining us top of the hour, look at the squad. We got Nika's rolling, Jeff Darlington is in the sunshine, Louis Riddick is on his way to Indianapolis this afternoon. I have been saying for about the last 2 weeks, Louis, that I expect Justin Fields to be traded perhaps by the end of this week, or at least the framework of that trade to be put in place this week at the Combine. But you've made me think this morning this could last a lot longer, because if Ryan Poles really is going to listen for an offer that might blow him away for the first pick in the draft, then he might need to wait. He might need to leave Justin in the gray a little longer than he wants to. Pick up the thought from there, Lou.
Yeah, I think there's kind of two things. It's funny because as you're talking about it and I'm listening to Ryan Poles, I'm thinking there's two things that he would probably like to know as soon as possible. Number one, is someone going to come there and try and move up to number one? And are they going to offer him some kind of, treasure trove of draft picks that forces him to maybe potentially hold on? Well, not forces him, that causes him to decide to hold on to Justin Fields. And then when he does move down, does he then move that pick once again, a la Peter King postulated, which is not out of the realm of possibility. He could be thinking 2-3 steps far beyond what we're even thinking about here, which is essentially that he's just going to draft Caleb Williams. And number two, he would probably like to know as soon as possible, what do people really believe Justin Fields is, and what are you willing to give up for him if, in fact, I have decided on drafting Caleb Williams or some other quarterback at number one overall? So, yeah, there's a couple things that he's right now having to think about. One, do I trade out of this position? Two, am I going to trade out of this position because someone offers me a bunch of picks? Three, ultimately, what do they feel about Justin Fields, and what could I possibly get for him? And quite honestly, I think the last piece, which maybe even the most important part of this, is I have heard Ryan Poles talk about the fact that he is very confident in his ability to evaluate quarterbacks on the field. He's very confident that he can identify the guy that he thinks best fits what they want to do. It's the part that injects doubt into every general manager's mind concerning whether or not he's the right person. Authentically, can we identify the right person for our organization, for our locker room, for our quarterback room, for our offense? So I think for him, that is also something that he is still trying to work through also, because he understands what flubbing this pick means for his career and for this franchise. Make no mistake about that. We would all love to be in this position with all this draft capital, but he understands the gravity of getting this right, because to not get it right spells doom for your career more likely than not.
It's a career-defining set of decisions that he's facing right now, one way or the other. You wind up in the Hall of Fame or you wind up out of a job based upon how you handle all this. Jeff, we were having an interesting conversation in the pre-show meeting. The Bengals had a similar situation. Well, they had a number one pick that everyone in the world wanted to trade up for a few years ago, right? And they wouldn't do it, but the circumstances are different.
Yes. When it came to Joe Burrow, there were teams that were trying so hard to move up to that one spot to get him. And all along, the Bengals said, no shot. It's not happening. We are picking Joe Burrow. They weren't even listening to the offers, no matter how hard teams tried. This, of course, is different because the Bears do have a quarterback. And that's where we take this right now to the scouting combine. Ryan Poles is in Indianapolis trying to figure out how he can have his cake and eat it too. Because, by the way, if he can figure out a way to unload Justin Fields for draft capital, suddenly not only does he have the picks and the quarterback, he has the ability to do everything that we're talking about, build the roster around the young quarterback. It's a daunting challenge, but obviously one that any general manager in the NFL would love to have.
I'm just thinking this through sitting here, Domonique, and it seems to me, if I'm Ryan Poles, if I'm trading Justin Fields, I want to do it before free agency begins. If I'm trading the pick, I want to hang on to it as long as I can and let the offers keep climbing and climbing. So there's another sort of inflection point that he's looking at here. Go ahead, Neek.
Yeah, I think that while Ryan Poles needs to block out all the outside noise because this is going to be a career-defining decision, I think the outside noise is going to impact this decision in part because of this franchise. It's a historic franchise that has never had like a great quarterback, and we have recent history of them passing on quarterbacks that turned out to be good, but they didn't know at the time, and selecting Mitchell Trubisky and all that stuff. So I do feel like while Ryan Poles is certainly going to go through the process, when we get to the end of this, they're not going to pass up on Caleb. Like, it's going to require an absurd deal to pass up on a quarterback that people are comping to Patrick Mahomes, which obviously is a bit hyperbolic. But they're not going to pass up on Patrick Mahomes again when they did it once in the past. So we never know what these quarterbacks are going to turn out to be, but I find it hard to believe that the Chicago fan base, in the ownership, in the front office, are going to go into another season with Justin Fields, who we've seen he hasn't worked there yet. Even though he's shown some promise, he hasn't worked there.
Go ahead, Lewis.
You know, the only thing I find interesting about this entire situation is this. Let's not forget that they decided as an organization to totally revamp the offensive coaching staff. They sent the entire offensive coaching staff out the door. So when you're trying to assess whether or not Justin Fields is the guy or not, clearly you felt as though the staff that was in place wasn't maximizing his potential or anyone else's potential too. Because if they were, they'd still be there. If this was so cut and dry that Justin's just not the guy, he just can't be, he's just not the guy to take us to where we want to get to, then why did you feel the need to totally wipe out the entire side of the ball? Why did you feel the need to go ahead and start totally over from scratch? Or are you saying that it was just so abysmal that the quarterback ultimately isn't good enough and the guy who was in charge of developing isn't good enough? Just slam dunk, it's got to be Caleb Williams. Because if you listen to his teammates talk, and I understand teammates oftentimes take up for their buddies. I understand that, and sometimes it's not totally objective. Listen to what DJ Moore has said about Justin Fields. Listen to what our own discourse has been about other quarterbacks who we know haven't been set up for success. We're going to talk about Mac Jones, right? And people right now are saying Mac Jones stinks. Just get him out of there. If this was any other coach other than Bill, who I love to death and taught me everything about football, we would absolutely eviscerate him. We would eviscerate that coach for what they did to Mac Jones in New England. We would say he doesn't deserve to ever coach again. You put a special teams coach and a former defensive coordinator in charge of his development? Are you kidding me? That's coaching malpractice. We'd be killing him. But now we're just automatically ready to say, Max stinks, they better draft Drake May. He just stinks. It's not the way it works.
Yeah, I think you're right. But the problem is some of these quarterbacks have been, I don't want to say that they've been ruined, but they've had rough starts to their career, and it may not be their fault. The problem is we rarely see guys who have rough starts to their career bounce back and then have success. So whether it's because Justin Fields isn't good enough or because the coaching staff ruined him or that organization ruined him and didn't give him the right opportunities, which I think the latter is probably closer to true, it doesn't really matter. You're at a point now where you have a quarterback who's been in the league long enough to have shown that he can lead your franchise, and he hasn't. And I understand that there are many reasons why not. With the way the contracts are set up, it makes more sense to go to the younger and the guy with less tread on the tires and less, issues stemming from being in a tough situation.
Well, let me ask you this then. This is the only thing I would ask you then. Do you believe that if Justin goes to a place like Atlanta with Raheem and with Zach Robinson and with TJ Yates, or if he goes to a place like Pittsburgh with Arthur, with Mike Tomlin, with that set of weapons, do you believe that he could then, do you think he's good enough to help those teams win their division, be contenders in their respective conferences?
Yeah,
then why can't Chicago do that?
But we're not talking about, because we're not talking about this in the vacuum. Right now, no, I'm telling you right now, given that Justin Fields been in the league for a certain amount of time, what his potential has lowered. How much better he can get is lower. What we are looking at with these other guys is a much higher level of potential. Like, I think it's see, now that's where we disagree, because we can't look at what we've seen from Justin Fields up until this point. Are you saying he's as promising as
Caleb Williams? No, okay, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying
Right.
that. Look, I believe Caleb is a very,
Bears have
very
the first
talented prospect. No question. No question. I do believe that. I do believe Caleb is a more talented prospect. I'm just saying, I don't believe that Justin Fields is this ruined, though. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet.
I agree.
Not by a long shot.
Ruined is definitely the wrong word. But I'm saying right now, this is not a question about
That's all I'm
Justin
saying.
Fields alone. It's a question about the potential going forward. And I think we all agree that the potential going forward is higher for Caleb Williams, a player. And that's what it seems like when you're in Chicago, a team that's never had a quarterback. They're going to go with that potential and hope that they hit a home run, because best case scenario for Justin Fields right now is probably a triple. He's not going to be Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson like that. He can be a good starting quarterback, but I don't imagine that we're going to see him turn into the top of the league type of guy.
I hope you are enjoying this conversation at home as much as I'm enjoying it here. I could sit back and listen to this for the rest of the day. Jeff Darlington, give me a final thought.
No, you know what? I'm just glad that Nick finally did that, because I never want to disagree with Lewis. He is clearly smarter and far superior in every way in life, but I completely disagree, and I'm glad that Nick finally got there. Both things can be true,
with
Lewis.
what part?
Like, Justin Fields can be a decent quarterback, but the Bears can say, we have the #1 pick and we want a generational quarterback. It can both be true.
Okay, hold on, dude. Hold on. First of all, we throw around that generational BS way too much. What do you mean
but what if he is
generational? Look, I
generational?
believe Caleb Williams.
What if
I believe Caleb Williams is fantastic. I do. I do believe that from a pure quarterbacking standpoint, he probably has more individual upside from a pure quarterbacking standpoint. I do believe that. Okay? I believe that. I just don't believe that Justin Fields now is just like ruined.
Yeah.
Because he's not.
No one's saying that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Actually,
Justin Fields definitely is not ruined. He can be good in this league. But you lost me, Jeff, when you start throwing around that G word, because Patrick Mahomes exists.
Don't do
and
that,
this
Jeff.
generation is
Exactly.
long. There's one
But that's
generational
what the
quarterback
Bears are
per
trying to
generation.
find out
This
right
generation
now.
is Patrick Mahomes. And he can be great. He can be in that tier with them other dudes like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. There's a generational quarterback. His name's Patrick. Everybody else is trying to figure it out.
That's what they're trying to find out. That's why you potentially send away a franchise quarterback in Justin Fields, because if you can get the generational guy, it sets you up for the next 15 to 20 years.
Right.
May I jump in?
I mean, the potential there is higher.
All right.
I hate to do it, because I love everything about this conversation, and it is, I hope, as good at home as it is going here. I can throw a couple of things into the conversation. Two things have been told to me while we were discussing this. One, our Courtney Cronin, our Bears reporter, reports the Bears are meeting with Caleb Williams this morning, so that meeting is taking place. That's obviously critically important in this. Another, I want to read you a quote that our Pete Thamel sent me. He's our college football reporter, and for what it is worth, we had there was a moment in time where there were these stories that suggested maybe Caleb Williams didn't want to go to Chicago. Remember that, with the father and everything else? Here's a quote from Pete Thamel that says, this is directly from Caleb Williams, quote, "If I get drafted by the Bears, I'll be excited. If they trade the pick and I get drafted by someone else, I'm just as excited." And drafting Caleb Williams is the thing least likely to get you fired. Because no one is, let's say Trevor Lawrence doesn't ever live up to the hype. He's been good, he hasn't been great. No one's going to say that was a bad pick. Why in the world did they take him? Because everyone in the world would have taken him. If you pass on Caleb Williams and he winds up being really good, then you are the guy who passed on Caleb Williams for the rest of your life. They're going to take him if for that reason only, Lewis.
There's, Greeny, I say it all the time. This is the Russell Wilson argument, okay? When Russell Wilson came out, everyone knocked Russell down when he came out of Wisconsin simply because he didn't fit the prototype. He didn't have the measurables. And then after the fact, as soon as Russell started ripping it up in Seattle, it was, I had a first-round grade on him and just couldn't take him that high because you know what? If he didn't work out, I probably would have got fired. There's no question, Greeny.
Yeah.
Teams will draft the prospects that when they do work out, it's like, well, of course they work out. I mean, I picked the right guy. When they don't work out, it's that guy just didn't maximize his potential, or that coach screwed him up, or something else happened because it wasn't me. You saw what I saw. You saw the height. You saw the weight. You saw the 40, 50, 60, 70-yard bomb on a rope. I didn't mess it up. You did. You're right. It happens all the time. I'm 100% with you, and I understand that would be a factor in this decision. There's no question about that. I'm not saying it's always the right thing to do, but it's the truth.
Nick, it's easy to say it's not the right thing to do when it's not your job, right? I mean, it might not in the long run turn out to be the right thing, but if you get fired, there's not a whole lot you can do about it after the fact.
Yeah, so the point is you want to have success, right? So get the guy that you think's going to make you successful. And who cares what they say about you? It's back to that Brandon Beane quote from the beginning of the show. Like, whether you pick the right guy or the wrong guy, all that matters is whether you have success or not. Whether you pick the guy that people are telling you to pick or the guy that you think is right, all that matters is if you win and have success. Get the guys that you think are going to help you have success, because at least you can then sleep at night if you failed and say, I made the decision that I thought was right. The worst possible situation is you make the decision that you think everyone else thinks is right, and then you get fired and you're home crying into your pillow about, damn, I shouldn't have listened to those guys on Get Up telling me who to pick. You're absolutely right. You should have listened to those guys on Get Up, because our job is not dependent on it. If I was ever, we've all been in positions where we had to have major decisions about our life or our careers, and I'd be damned if I'm going to call Mike Greenberg up and say, hey, what do you think about this decision? No, I make the decision that I think is right. No disrespect, Mike. If I were to call anybody, you'd be the first one I call.
Yeah.
Greeny, you know what? I hate to blow this whole. I'd like to ask everyone here, like, honestly, and it's in particular, that guy to the left of you, well, actually to your right, my left, Jeff Darlington, last year.
There we go.
Last year's quarterback debate at the top of the draft. Who did you have number one, Jeff? Who was the generational guy for you?
Answer him, Jeff.
No, I'm an idiot.
Jeff, who did you like? Who did you like?
Does anybody remember who drafted Jamarcus Russell? No, they just remember he was a bust. To Greeny's point, if it's a consensus number one overall pick,
don't dodge the question, Darlington.
You take him because it reduces all the risk.
I will say this, just to finish it up.
My point being this.
Yeah, Lewis, real quick.
Okay, go ahead, Green.
Okay,
I was just going to say, my point being this, in relationship to what Domonique is saying, you got to believe what you believe. You have to trust yourself. You can't listen to consensus, because I'll tell you what, last year I honestly believe that C.J. Stroud was the best quarterback in the draft. And who knows, maybe Bryce is going to make improvements this year. But I believed it wholeheartedly, and I had people telling me all the time, you're nuts. He ain't the best quarterback in this draft. Okay. Just be careful when you start following consensus.
Let me read you one more quote from Caleb Williams on the way out.
Don't be a coward, the bottom line.
Here's what Caleb Williams said, quote, I'm not pushing any agenda. At the end of the day, the Bears have the last say. Regardless of how I feel, I'm not pushing an agenda of, yeah, I want to go, or no, I don't want to go. I'm excited for whatever comes.